the better.
Leaders are now trying to work out the logistics for how all this gets paid for. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. It's a deal worth more than $3 billion. ABC's Sherry Preston says the company that owns professional wrestling will now run with the Bulls.
Cody told me this bull looks like so much fun to ride.
WWE parent company TKO snatching up Endeavor Group, owner of professional bull riders, for $3.25 billion.
That's ABC's Sherry Preston. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day now 185 points, while the NASDAQ is up 113. And our KSL weather is going to wind up being 20 degrees cooler today than it was yesterday. That's next. KSL News Time 101.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
If you need a new roof, there's a reason IWC Roofing is the #1 residential roofing contractor in Utah. IWC has been replacing roofs for 27 years. They are professionals. You don't get some janky subcontractor fiddling around up there. You get experienced IWC employees on your roof, and they finish most jobs in a single day. They're in, they're out, and they power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now you're wondering about the price. After all, IWC is one of the few Owens Corning Platinum certified contractors in the entire state, but they offer value pricing, and right now, take advantage of their fall special. $2,000 off your quote. And of course, they'll work with you on financing, so call IWC Roofing, the highest rated roofing contractor in Utah, plus $2,000 off. Right now, call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690, or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a road closure due to the injury accident we've been reporting at California Avenue and 1300 West. Again, California Avenue is closed between Glendale Drive and Stewart Street. Salt Lake City PD asking that you avoid the area. Advanced Window Products, $2,500 off 10 windows or more. AdvancedWindows.com. Affordable windows guaranteed. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
So 58 is all we'll get to for a high today. Temperatures rise back into the 70s before they drop again on Monday, and there's no chance of rain until then. Right now, 54 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather stays.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Few phrases get used more often, elicit more headlines, become more bumper stickers than draining the swamp. Started as a pledge to eliminate corruption and special interests, has since evolved into a competition of who can offer more targeted benefits to specific groups. As both major candidates pivot from reform to redistribution, we're faced with fundamental questions about the nature of governance, fairness, and the future of our constitutional republic. So it's time to think again about what we think we know about the phrase draining the swamp and what does it really mean? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is time to think again about what we think we know about a very popular phrase, drain the swamp. We hear it chanted, we see bumper stickers and slogans and signs and T-shirts. Everybody seems to want to drain the swamp, but I think we've drained the meaning out of the words draining the swamp. Someone who's taken a real look at this, someone we always depend on, Veronique Derugy, a contributing editor at Reason. She's also a senior research fellow at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. A great piece at Reason today. And Veronique, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get into this. I am totally with you on this. We have drained the meaning out of drain the swamp. What do you think it means?
So I think it means two distinct things. So my understanding of what it means is basically you stop having government that functions for special interest and people connected to politicians, but also to bureaucrats. And I think there's another broader meaning, which is one, that has to do with the deep state, where basically you have entrenched bureaucrats who actually have a lot of power and that's disconnected with what the voters want. But, I mean, those two things are somewhat connected in the end.
Yeah. And so those are the connected points, and those are the things we often hear sold by campaigns and politicians. You offered a different meaning, that it actually is more a call to come join the swamp rather than actually drain the swamp. Tell us how we got there.
Well, so one of the things that I wanted to write about the fact that this campaign, whether it's President Trump or VP Harris, it's been all about actually bringing people into the swamp by making a lot of promises about what different special group would be getting if either of them was elected. And so they're making promises that are very specific to their own campaigns, but some of the promises that they're making are very driven, are targeting the same special interest. So, for instance, both of them have proposed to eliminate tax on tips. That's one thing that they have in common, and that's really it's ultimately a tax policy that is not targeting everyone. It's just targeting a very specific group. I'm sure that people who earn tips love that idea, but what targeted policy means? It means that eventually we're going to have to raise taxes on everyone else because of all these targeted policies.
Yeah, and as you look at that, it is I think the populism is basically calling everyone to the swamp and saying, "Come on in, the water's fine, and we got something for you."
Yeah, and if you want to think about some of the things that they've said, right? President Trump has talked about no taxes on Social Security. He's basically right there making a promise to people who are retired. Then VP Harris has promised forgivable loans of $20,000 to Black entrepreneurs. Now she's extended it to minorities, but still, it's very targeted. She has promised lots of subsidies for childcare. That's just targeting parents, obviously. And here's the problem. You can say, well, these are tax cuts. Sure, they're tax cuts, but they're not generalized tax cuts. The best form of tax policies are the ones that are general, that broaden the base, and then allows for lower rates for everyone, independently of what you do. And this is exactly the opposite of what these guys are doing.
Yeah, these very targeted, and often those with the most lawyers and lobbyists and friends in crucial places that seem to get these very targeted kinds of things, which rarely lead to good outcomes. One of the things you pointed out in your piece, I think is really important for all of us to think about or think again about, is that a lot of these handouts or these things that sound good from the campaign trail often don't do what we think they're going to do. And you actually pointed to something like Solyndra as one of those cautionary tales.
Well, so the idea, so Solyndra, people know about that company because it failed, leaving taxpayers with a bill of $538 million. That was during the Obama years. But the way that happened is because at the time, it was actually a program that was started by President Bush, and really kind of stepped up during the Obama years. And these were extending loan guaranteed to green energy companies, especially solar and wind. And the idea is that somehow the government can convince or can help bring to light some sort of entrepreneurship that wouldn't happen if it weren't for this guaranteed offer by the government. And what Solyndra showed, and many other examples, is like very often there's a reason why these companies are actually not getting capital from the private sector, and that is that they don't have a good project.
Right.
And when they get capital to get going, it doesn't go any better because they have the government funding. And in the end, taxpayers pay. But the worst part, and I didn't really have, I think I mentioned it in the piece, I think the worst part about these type of programs that are here, it's targeted to corporate interests, is the fact that a lot of the time, the government ends up giving money or extending, like, for instance, lower borrowing costs to companies that were going to do the thing they're getting now subsidized to do.
Yeah.
And they were going to do it without the government help. So if you take the Inflation Reduction Act, more than half of the projects were actually announced before the legislation was even anyone knew it was going to get through.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you have a lot of big corporations who want to do a bunch of stuff. We're planning on doing it all on their own, and now they're getting subsidized. And how do they get picked? In general, it's because they have relationships with the company, with the government.
Yeah.
They have relationship with politicians. And now, basically, what they're doing, what both of them are doing, that type of
I think we just
individual groups.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Veronique, always great insight, great perspective. Thanks for carving out a little bit of time for us today. This is a crucial conversation that we need to continue because often this hurts our small businesses, our medium businesses who are really trying to compete, and it stifles innovation. It keeps costs high, not good for consumers or for the public either. Veronique, as always, thanks so much for joining us today. Great perspective.
Thank you.
All right, that's Veronique Derougy from Reason, contributing editor at Reason, senior research fellow at Mercatus Center at George Mason University. And I just want to drill down on this for just a second more, because some of the things that she talked about are so vital. So this draining of the swamp, everybody loves it as a bumper sticker. But often what they're doing, the politicians are doing, is saying, hey, well, if you're on my team, or if you're voting for me, or if you're donating to my campaign, then we're gonna do things and send things your way. And it's not based on best ideas, not based on, as Veronique said, not based on that this wouldn't happen if government didn't help. Most of the time, these are projects that companies were going to do and fund on their own. But because they have connections, because they have a big army of lobbyists, because they've developed relationships with those in power, then they get that money. And so what does it do? It makes the big bigger. And it keeps the real innovators, the entrepreneurs, the small and medium business owners who are really trying to innovate, make it better, make it cheaper, more affordable, more effective. It keeps them out of the game because they simply cannot compete with that kind of power. So when we talk about draining the swamp, we got to redefine what it means. We've drained all the meaning out of draining the swamp. And Veronique was absolutely right. What it really means these days is come on in. The water's nice. Don't drain it. Just come and join it. You'll find you actually like it. And that's part of the problem. That's why we got to rethink again. And we're going to stay with this conversation coming up in my conversation I had with Gene Marks about those very entrepreneurs and small business owners and what they need to do, because they are the heart and soul, the backbone of our economy and our community. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Number 7.
Intercepted! Tommy Precious picks it off!
That is one lucky number.
The touchdown!
7-0. Congrats to our BYU Cougars. Join the BYU faithful. Listen to Cougar Tracks all this week at 7:55 in the morning on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Hey, do you feel like you need a nap after your nap? Well, lugging around extra weight isn't just exhausting, it's also putting your health at risk. Here's a way to reduce your risk of obesity-related illnesses. SOTA Weight Loss, SOTA. No injections, no hunger, just amazing results that last. John Smith, you get up early just like I do.
I do, man. I get up at like 3:30 a.m., and by that I mean 4:30. But yeah, before I started SOTA Weight Loss about 6 weeks ago, I was dragging by the afternoon. But I've lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks.
And I let go of 70 pounds in 5 months. You get fast results, and the best part, John, is doing it without injections, pills, medications, or crazy exercising.
Yeah, no surgery, no side effects. It's just better food at better times of the day.
People will notice how you look different, and we've got the proof at SOTAweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Go there, click request a nutritionist callback, and within moments you can start the same journey that John and I have found great success on, because SOTA is, say it with me, John, state of the art.
Lowe's knows that to win the job, pros need the best prices. That's why only at Lowe's, MVP's Pro Rewards members can get a volume discount on eligible orders as low as $1,500 at the Pro Desk. That means you get the prices you need to start any job, small or large. Because Lowe's knows pros. Valid in-store only. More terms and restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms or Pro Desk for details.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this. 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. You know, for some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
An airliner takes off from the Pacific Northwest, carrying 101 passengers and crew. Most aboard Flight 293 are active-duty military and their families, headed to Cold War assignments in Alaska.
Surveillance of the Soviet military buildup.
But somewhere over the ocean, with no distress call, the airliner plunges into the icy water below.
Even if all 4 engines quit, that aircraft would fly.
There were no survivors and no bodies were ever recovered. For decades, loved ones were left to wonder
what happened to Flight 293 and why hasn't there been any follow-up.
The government turned its back. Passengers and crew of Flight 293 were forgotten by everyone, except their families.
Unless we pursue it, we will never be issued a true explanation.
Unsolved Histories, What Happened to Flight 293 is available now. Follow us at unsolvedhistoriespod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, the state of Utah might need to spend $60 billion to keep its water systems running over the next 35 years. Second, professional wrestling and professional bull riding are now run by the same company. And third, the woman suspected of carjacking a group of students from BYU at Bridal Veil Falls now facing a list of criminal charges. 54 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We've heard me say it many times on this program that I think what actually fuels liberty and freedom around the world is small business. Entrepreneurs, small business owners, they're what really drive everything. And while we often focus on all the other areas and all the other aspects, most of the jobs are in small businesses. Most of the extraordinary things that take place in our community happen because of small businesses. So as we come down the home stretch in 2024, we want to do a quick check-in on America's small business community. Why? Because it really is what matters. The election's going to come and go in 13 days. And the next morning, small business owners and people who work for small businesses are going to get up on the first Wednesday of November, regardless of who wins and who loses in all the different races. And they're going to get up and they're going to go to work and they're going to provide great service and great products and make a difference in their community. And that's why we all should be confident moving forward. And so as we check in today, really pleased to have joining us on the program Gene Marks, founder of the Marks Group, a small business consulting firm. Had a great piece in The Hill relating to America's small businesses and where they've been in 2024 and what they're hoping for as we move into 2025. And Gene, welcome to the program.
My God, Boyd, you took away everything I was just going to say. I'm
teeing you up, Gene. Dig us into this because I'm not sure. A lot of us kind of go through our days and we don't really think about small businesses and just the impact they actually do have on our communities, on our country as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, and I think about it all the time because, you know, I write for The Hill and The Guardian and The Washington Times and, you know, a bunch of other places. I cover small business and I'm a CPA. So we have about 600 small and mid-sized businesses as clients. So I'm deep into the whole issue of them. Sometimes it does astound me, though, Boyd, as well, that, you know, this is a community that provides, you know, 50% of the jobs in this country, half of the GDP in this country. It's a massive voting block, and sometimes it surprises me during elections how little attention they get from from candidates, when they're such a huge influence on the outcome of an election.
Yeah, and I just want to double down on that for everybody listening. It's half the GDP, it's half the jobs, and it's easy to talk about Apple and Google and all of those other big major corporations and what they're doing. But if we don't pay attention to what's happening in the small business, if we don't put small business first, we're not going to have an economy or a country that's really going to last.
Yeah, and even when you talk about the large companies that are out there, and they're, obviously they make the news, they're heavily reliant on their smaller suppliers, smaller vendors, consultants, people that cut their lawns, clean their offices. These are all small businesses. Even the pizza shop and dry cleaners that services their employees. There's a whole, sort of infrastructure that's there, an ecosystem where these large companies would not be doing what they're doing if they didn't have their ecosystem of small businesses around them.
Yeah, and so as you follow and have a unique perch to see what is happening inside of small businesses around the country, how did they do in the ups and downs of a turbulent 2024 with the election year going on? And what is it that they're really looking for moving into 2025?
So, as we head towards the end of the year, a lot of different places have been doing surveys of small businesses. You can't rely on one survey alone, because I've learned that sometimes they're skewed, sometimes they're biased, or sometimes their methodology isn't that great. So what I did for this Hill article this week is I took a number of surveys, 7 of them, that issued by Intuit, who makes QuickBooks, for small businesses, and from CNBC, and from a company called Fiserv, and Bank of America, and the National Federation of Independent Businesses. And I looked around, so you asked about how, when I looked at all of those surveys together, and I asked the same question, how was 2024? And it was a mixed year. We live in a big country, Boyd. There's 300 million. The state of California has a bigger economy than all of the UK, and the state of, Texas has a bigger economy than Canada. So it's tough to say how did all of small businesses do? Because it depends on what industry you're in and where you're located and who you're selling to. But the surveys dovetailed into what I found, which is it's a mixed bag is what it is. You have some of the very smallest businesses, retail and restaurants, they did experience some growth. But then you have Intuit, who takes actual data from their actual customers, and they're saying that, small business revenue over the past few months have actually dipped in most of the regions around the country. And then you take the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which has been doing this for 50 years. They ask their members, and they've also been seeing a dip in revenue as well and profits this year. So it's been a mixed bag. For the most part, nobody is screaming and yelling, and I'm not seeing a surge in bankruptcies, but I'm not seeing any of my clients or many of the respondents to these many surveys laughing their way to the bank.
Yeah.
It's been a challenging year for them.
Yeah, no question. And we often say when it comes to entrepreneurs and small business owners that they tend to run out of energy before they run out of opportunity, and often that comes because of regulatory burdens or hurdles they've got to clear, and the big businesses can hire an army of lawyers and lobbyists to deal with it. Is there any fatigue factor that you're worried about rolling into 2025? Because as you said, they're a resilient lot, these small business owners. But are they going to sustain? And what are they most worried about moving into the new year?
I can tell you there's a few worries that they talk to me about, and one big one that they don't talk about that most small business should know about. Most businesses are still getting their arms around higher costs. Inflation has come down, but when you look at cost, Boyd, compared to just 3 years ago, most businesses are dealing with costs that are 20 to 30% higher, and they're trying to still get their arms around that and struggle with that. Labor continues to be an issue as well. The job market has softened, so that's been a big relief, but it's still a challenge to find good employees and pay them. Health insurance costs alone are going up 9% in 2025, and that's a big burden for businesses. I think, and maybe just because I'm an accountant here, we're heading into tax Armageddon this coming year, and the election is going to have a huge impact on taxes that impact small businesses like mine.
Yeah.
Because there are some huge tax deductions that are set to expire from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And if they do, I wrote about this separately in the Washington Times, many small businesses are going to see their tax bill double if these things expire after 2025. So I think more business owners need to be aware of that as we head into the coming year.
Yeah, so important. It's not just the taxes on the big businesses that are so easy to target in a political ad or a campaign speech, but those trickle and hit our small business owners the same way, and they're not prepared for that. Great information, great insight as always. Gene Marks, founder of the Marks Group, a small business consulting firm. You can check out his piece at thehill.com. And Gene, thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to having you back.
Boy, thanks so much. You take care.
All right. So we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. And remember, small businesses drive everything. They're so crucial to our communities. Make sure you're supporting your small businesses today. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Davis County Sheriff's Office asking the community to keep a lookout for their missing canine named Cash. German short-haired pointer suddenly ran off Monday night when he was taken outside for a bathroom break.
And so if you're comfortable staying in the area of him and keeping a visual, that would be wonderful. If not, if you're able to just call in with that tip, that would be greatly appreciated.
That's Stephanie Zinsmore with the Sheriff's Department. They say Anybody who sees cash needs to contact their dispatch office. The duck hunter who drowned in the Great Salt Lake has been identified now. The Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office says Kenneth Hill and another man were in the water retrieving their decoys when his companion spotted him face down in the water. The other man managed to bring his friend to a nearby island, but first responders determined that he died. Kenneth Hill was 81. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Sources tell ABC News that Beyoncé set to appear. Vice President Harris's scheduled rally in Houston tomorrow. She's just one of a number of celebrities backing Harris. The vice president tonight will be doing a rally with former President Barack Obama, and Bruce Springsteen will also join them on the campaign trail. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day right now, 139 points. The NASDAQ is down by, or the NASDAQ rather is up by 147 points right now. And our KSL weather, a lot cooler than it was yesterday, but just as sunny. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
And now a minute of kindness brought to you by One Kind Act a Day. The story of the Hales family is a poignant reminder and a testament to the enduring power of kindness amidst profound loss. 10 years ago, they faced a heartbreaking stillbirth of their twin boys, a tragedy that could have consumed them in despair, but instead, they transformed their sorrow into a legacy of love and generosity, choosing each anniversary to honor their sons by giving back. This year, the entire family made heartfelt lunches for the community, each accompanied by notes of encouragement and warmth. The Hales family reminds us that kindness can flourish even in the darkest of moments. Their journey reflects a commitment to uplift others, demonstrating that love transcends grief and that earned compassion can weave a community closer together. Find out more about how you can be involved online at thepowerofkind.org. That's thepowerofkind.org.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Meet Brian. He just got $5,000, and it was pretty easy. I'll tell you how in 10 seconds. Brian needed cash help. After being rejected by banks, he tried 27cash.com. Told them how much he needed, even let them know he had bad credit. In minutes, 27cash.com found a lender who deposited $5,000 into his bank account the very next day. If you need cash help, even if you have bad credit, go to 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
Give the star in your life the brightest gift in the world. Name a star after them. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can name a star for birthdays, weddings, or even memorials. Over 45 years, we have named millions of stars for celebrities and individuals from around the world. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Celeste Malloy. I'm running for re-election to represent you and keep Utah's conservative values in Washington, D.C. Like you, I'm tired of a government that spends too much, listens too little, and makes all of our lives harder. In Washington, I'm pushing back against bad ideas and liberal policies. Let me keep representing you so I can keep fighting for you, because we are just getting started.
I'm Celeste Malloy, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Celeste for Congress.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Freeway traffic in the valley rolling along and looking good. We're in the final cleanup stages of an earlier injury accident, California Avenue at 1300 West. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, 58 is all we get for a high today. Temperatures rise back into the 70s before they drop again on Monday. No chance of rain until then. 54 and sunny right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, we're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
In today's complex educational landscape, the conversations around parental rights and school policies has become a real pressure point. Recent polling reveals fascinating patterns of agreement and division across political lines when it comes to sensitive topics like gender identity, sex education, student privacy. And while these issues may not have been in the middle of some of the debates in the 2024 election cycle, it is something that continues to put real strain and stress on relationships between families, educators, and institutions. Suzanne Bates, of course, is national politics editor for the Deseret News, and she and our good friend Lois Collins have a great piece at Deseret.com about parental control and states and what their role is in all of this, especially as it relates to education. And Suzanne, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So give us a little sense in terms of, we always feel that there's a tug and pull when it comes to the rights of parents and the rights of the school and the administrators and the state. Give us a sense of how that's shaping up in 2024, and what are you finding in some of this new polling?
It's interesting because it hasn't been a big issue this year like it has in years past, but it's definitely still top of mind for some voters. And we actually found a lot of agreement across parties on some really basic issues of parental rights. Like parents think that, or voters think that parents should be the primary teachers of children in terms of sex education and gender identity, especially when they're young. You know, they really do want parents to be the first teachers for kids in this area versus schools. You know, and that's true for a lot of areas. There is disagreement. I think the big disagreement that we saw was really between how much emphasis parents feel like is placed on these subjects in schools, where conservative parents don't seem to trust the schools as much and feel like there's too much emphasis there. And progressive parents, Democratic parents, are more likely to say they think schools are doing what they should be doing and teaching sort of math and reading and writing.
Yeah, so interesting. And one of the things you pointed out in your piece that I think is important for us, that a lot of these, especially when it gets to parents and their role, school and school's role, there's a lot of the things that are the kind of the loud and noisy on the extreme ends, on both ends of the spectrum, whether it's, you know, the large, you know, ban the books and the attacks on freedom. And as you break those down, what do you find in terms of that common ground? Unpack that a little bit for us in terms of where is that agreement, and are we letting the loud, the noisy, and the often angry preventing us from having better discussions about things that there is a lot of agreement on?
Yeah, I do think there's agreement. And I think, you know, you mentioned banning books. I think when you get more granular, and that's not something we did with this poll, but I've seen other polls where when you get more granular and you ask, well, should there be books with, you know, images of sexuality and things like that in grade schools, people say no. And so there is agreement even on some of these issues that feel so strident sometimes. Yeah. But we focus on the sort of the slogan instead of the actual policy. You know, and I think that's some of the questions we asked about, you know, what should be taught in schools. Sex education has become a real flashpoint for a lot of people, but I think there's broad agreement, you know, that shouldn't, that young children shouldn't be taught some of these things. Now that is happening in some schools, not necessarily in Utah, but we see in other states like California and New Jersey, where they are introducing ideas of, you know, that you can declare your gender, or, you know, sex education is more maybe advanced than people. But that's also something that's states' rights, right? I mean, that's why we have local control, because parents here are maybe less comfortable with that, and parents in New Jersey, you know, are maybe making different decisions.
Yeah, and so important. And I just want to emphasize something that you said there, Suzanne, because I think this is so vital for us. We often get so wrapped around the axle when it comes to the slogans that we don't really get underneath that in terms of, well, what is the actual policy? What does the actual policy say or do? And I think your example of books is such a good one, of nobody wants to ban books or have a big book burning party at the local elementary school. But if you get that granular look at the policy, they say, oh, yeah, well, this is not age appropriate or this is not age appropriate. And there seems to be a lot of agreement. Give me a sense, Suzanne, in terms of some of the kind of the tugs and pulls that you continue to see and monitor in this space, and the relationship between parents and teachers and administrators. And have we ruined the ability for those conversations to happen with some of that loud and noisy and angry space?
Well, it's interesting. And one of the people that we spoke to, an attorney, he said, it's kind of like Congress, where you're like, I don't like Congress, but maybe I like my member of Congress who's local to me. And I think that might be true sometimes with schools as well. There might be sort of this general distrust of schools among conservatives, but maybe they're not feeling that strongly about, they maybe like the teacher in their classroom, and I think that's, I think what we all need to remember is when you get local, if parents feel disengaged or distrustful, then they really should engage on that very local level. Find out what's happening in your schools, and always respectfully, obviously, find out what's happening in your school district. And often I think a lot of those fears are put to the side, but if you are uncomfortable with something, look, I've got kids and I've had moments where I'm like, you're learning what in school? And, that's an opportunity to express your concerns and reach out and make sure, clarify what, if the child is actually correct, but I think that engaging with your local schools is always a good idea as a parent.
Yeah, no question. And give us one last thought before I let you go, Suzanne. One of the things you concluded in your piece were some of these questions about child protection and how that plays in. That's sort of the umbrella that we look at these, and how does that impact the debate and, again, the interaction between parents, teachers, and administrators?
Yeah, well, we asked some questions around transgender ideology, and I think this is, again, one of those issues that's become very hot button, in part because there's been a big rise in the number of children who have declared themselves transgender, and some of that I think is maybe driven by social media. It's hard to know, right? I think sometimes parents are looking for something to blame. Is it the schools? Is it social media? What is it, that's happening with our kids? But I think that what we saw in our study is there's a broad agreement that we need to, protect kids, that we also need to, there is some disagreement between Republicans and Democrats over what kids should be allowed to do in school, what parents should know. Democrats were more likely to say it was okay for schools to not tell parents if a child wanted to change their name or gender identity at school, where Republicans and independents were more likely to say, no, you need to let parents know about that. And we are seeing policies on that. In California, for example, they passed a law saying that schools couldn't tell parents if children were changing their identity at school. So I think there are areas that we really do need to have these honest and open conversations about the policies. And how do we get to a place when we do have these disagreements, right? How do we get to a place where we can be comfortable with what's happening in schools? Yeah, that is the bottom line. And as you said earlier, Suzanne, it starts with engaging at the local level, at your school district, in your neighborhood. Sometimes we jump to these big national debates, and sometimes they're not even anything close or remotely close to what's actually happening in our own hometowns and in our own neighborhoods, and that's where that conversation absolutely has to begin. Suzanne Bates, National Politics Editor for the Deseret News. Great piece. Check it out at Deseret.com. And Suzanne, as always, thanks for joining us. Thank you so much for having me. All right, that's Suzanne Bates, National Politics Editor for the Deseret News. And these are crucial conversations, and how we have those conversations matters. And it matters when we start at the local level first. We'll be right back.
Get up to a 30% upfront bonus to use for your retirement income, or up to 12% per year to help grow your retirement income. Whether you're in retirement or will be retiring within 10 years, Trajan Wealth can offer some of the highest guarantees in the business. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I know no one wants to work forever. We all need to retire someday, and I know you've worked hard for your money, so now is the time to guarantee it. Take advantage of up to a 30% upfront bonus bonus for your retirement income, or up to 12% per year for retirement income. Don't woulda, shoulda, coulda. Get up to a 30% bonus just for opening an account, or up to 12% per year for retirement income. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Retire the right way, the Trajan way, with Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. DBA in most states says Trajan Wealth Insurance Solutions.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Fall is here, and there's nothing better than to sit in a relaxing hot tub when it's cold outside. Hot Tub Factory Outlet and Backyards of America can help you save on your next hot tub. Save a staggering 30, 40, even 50% off MSRP on Sundance hot tubs and swim spas. Yes, you heard right. 30, 40, even 50% off. With every size and color available, your choices are limitless. And here's the icing on the cake. Be one of the first 20 buyers and receive a free $2,700 electric massage chair. Absolutely free. But hurry, these chairs are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone. Every Sundance hot tub and swim spa is priced to sell. Visit the largest swim spa showroom in the state and find out how easy it is to say yes to your very own hot tub or swim spa. Time is running out. Head over to Hot Tub Factory Outlet next to Cowabunga Bay and Draper, Backyards of America in Sandy, and our new location, Station Park in Farmington.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud phone system. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust new Febreze car vent clips, now with 3 times greater scent control, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing, which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Point! Hey, you okay? You don't normally miss those shots.
I just haven't been as regular lately, and it's making me feel sluggish.
You should try Metamucil. It's been a game changer for me. Metamucil's plant-based psyllium fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Ace, you're moving better than you were last week.
Definitely.
Metamucil keeps you moving. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Learn more at metamucil.com.
As Cybersecurity Awareness Month winds down, LifeLock reminds you to update your software regularly. These updates fix security flaws that could be exploited by identity thieves. But don't stop there. LifeLock offers comprehensive identity theft protection that goes the extra mile. LifeLock not only alerts you to suspicious use of your info, but also takes action to resolve identity theft issues, guaranteed, or your money back. Start your 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. Terms apply.
911, emergency.
They kidnapped my son.
What would you do if your child disappeared and someone you trusted was responsible? We thought he cared for McKay, when in fact he didn't care for anyone. Listen to Ransom now at ransompodcast.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a couple of bullets were found in a classroom at American Fork High School this afternoon. Doors were locked, but classes continued. Second, one of Davis County Sheriff's canines is missing. Deputies asking people in Farmington to keep an eye out for a German short-haired pointer named Cash. And third, a popular brand of snack cracker is made in Utah. Will change its name temporarily from goldfish to Chilean sea bass. Right now, we're at 54 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Well, as Florida, South Carolina, and other southern states continue to reel and attempt to recover from the storms that crashed into their communities, it's raising a lot of questions about America's storm preparedness and the effect of climate change on storm severity, the impact of all of that. However, it might be one of those moments where we need to think again about what we think we know when we measure storm severity and what it actually means and what it doesn't mean, so that we can get to the right conversations, both in terms of climate, but also all the other things that are impacted as well. So as we look at that, we're really pleased to have joining us on the show today Harry Stevens, a climate columnist for the Washington Post, and a great piece at the Post talking about the real reason we have billion-dollar disasters like Hurricane Helene and others are getting more common. And Harry, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Boyd.
So let's dig into this, and I want to be very clear to all our listeners. This is not climate denial. This is not over the edge. We got to get rid of all the humans. So it's neither one of those, but it's one of those where if we don't have the right conversation, we're never going to get to the right kinds of solutions on all the issues that come out of these weather patterns and what's happening. And you did a beautiful job of breaking this down, Harry. And so kind of walk us through this kind of the history of how we've been measuring the impact of these storms.
There is a data set that's maintained by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also called NOAA, which runs the National Weather Service and lots of other programs and does a lot of really great work on forecasting weather, preparing people for natural disasters, and generally like really good scientific work. But they also maintain this data set of $1 billion disasters that have struck the United States since 1980. So just any kind of weather disaster that caused $1 billion or more in damage. And that's a really valid sort of scientific question to ask, like what's the economic damage of weather on the U.S., on the U.S. economy? But a lot of times this data set, which has shown an increase in billion-dollar disasters, that increase is attributed in part or entirely to the role of global warming, while overlooking the role that societal growth, risky development, more property, more assets in harm's way have played in the increase in billion-dollar disasters. And so the story is just about, how this data set came to be and the efforts of scientists to try to disentangle all of those various causes to try to really understand what it is that's causing the rise in billion-dollar disasters.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, with that, I don't want to bury the lead, but, basically when scientists have tried to detect a signal of climate change and rising disaster losses, this is not specifically in the billion-dollar disaster data set because nobody's actually done the analysis on this data set, but on other, data sets of hurricane losses or, other hazard losses, scientists have not been able to detect the signal of climate change and rising disaster losses. And that's not because climate change isn't real or it's not important. It's just because the influence of societal growth is so much greater in rising disaster losses that it drowns out the signal of climate change in the data.
Yeah. And so that's such an important thing for us all to wrap our head around, because sometimes I think we get so lost in the wrong conversation. The number of times that these billion-dollar disaster data set, get quoted on the floor of the House or the Senate, or is the introduction of some new bill relating to climate. Again, it's part of the equation, but we've made it the equation in some instances, or just a good argument or a good talking point for either side. And so as you look at that, you actually referenced in your piece this billion-dollar disaster data set, and even looking at these recent storms in terms of how they apply in there, and then what is it, you talk about the societal growth and change, you kind of break that down for us in terms of what is it that we ultimately add up when we say, hey, we're having more of these billion-dollar disasters.
Yeah, it's sort of like until you really consider the role of societal growth, I think it's pretty natural to just assume that climate change might be the main driver behind the growth in these really expensive disasters. Hurricanes and wildfires, they're these really vivid events. And so your attention is naturally drawn to the hazard. And you don't tend to notice the sort of gradual growth in population and in wealth and in property over time. But the thing is that as that growth continues to compound over time, it just ends up being a much larger factor. And so you look at things like, what they call the wildland urban interface, which is just, basically people building in places that are prone to wildfire. And, so since 1990, the number of people living or number of housing units in the wildland urban interface has increased from like 30 million to 45 million. And those aren't the exact numbers. You have to read my piece to get the exact ones. I don't have them on the top of my head, but it's something on that order of like 30 million to 45 million. So just way, way more people living in the wildland urban interface. And that's important, one, because most wildfires are started by humans. And so if you have more people in that area, that just means that there's a greater probability that wildfires will be started. And then because there are more people in that, wildland urban interface, there's just more stuff that's at risk. And so if the cost of wildfires has increased, you have to try to at least account for the role of societal growth before you can start to try to attribute any increase to global warming.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those really important and conversations. We can have a conversation about the climate and the environment and the change and all of that's happening. And we also have to just take into account that we have more wealth. We have more people building expensive homes on coastlines, which, again, results in more infrastructure, more jobs, more businesses, restaurants that are around those areas. And so part of this is just society growing, expanding, more affluence. So then when these storms do come through, the tally ends up being much more because we put more stuff in the path of these storms.
That's exactly right. And, also it has to do with how we mitigate that risk. So if you look at Hurricane Helene, there was a lot of really catastrophic inland flooding in the western North Carolina area, particularly around Asheville. And I get into this in the piece a little bit, but inland flooding is highly mediated by the, stuff that we build to control flooding, things like dams and dikes, canals. And in the mid-20th century, the Tennessee Valley Authority built a lot of flood control dams on the Tennessee River and the surrounding area in Tennessee. And those dams have prevented a lot of damage over the years. Tennessee Valley Authority estimates something like $9.6 billion in economic losses have been prevented because of its dams. And in the 60s, the TVA had a plan to put flood control dams, 14 of them, in fact, on the French Broad River upstream of Asheville. And those were stringently opposed by the local population, and for good reason. Like the TVA had a reputation of using eminent domain to dispossess people of their land, kind of steamrolling people, flooding land that used to be used for agriculture. And so, people opposed that project, and it was never built. TVA scrapped the project in 1972. But, had those dams been built, it's certainly possible that they could have mitigated some of the horrible damage that was seen in Asheville, which has flooded repeatedly, for hundreds of years. And so, it's just one of those things that there is evidence that climate change made Helene's rainfall stronger and also made its wind speed stronger. And so those, probably had some impact on economic losses. But if you don't consider the role that society plays in mitigating those losses or exposing ourselves to more damage, then you can really miss a big part of the picture.
This is such a great piece. You need to check this out today at the Washington Post. Again, it's Harry Stevens, and it's the real reason billion-dollar disasters are growing more common. This is the ultimate and conversation. This is exactly why we do this. And Harry, thanks so much for joining us. A brilliant piece, great writing, fantastic research. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Boyd. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Harry Stevens again from the Washington Post. And it is so important that we can say, yes, climate change is impacting this, and regulatory stuff is preventing a lot of mitigating things, and we're putting a lot of more really valuable assets like million-dollar homes in the path of these storms. So it's an and conversation for sure. We'll step aside for top of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. Our top story this hour, we have breaking news out of Holiday. Firefighters say there's an active rescue underway at a house fire there. Fire located at Route 60th South and 2075 East. KSL News Radio will have more information as soon as it becomes available. The Utah Supreme Court has spoken, finally, and Amendment D still will not count, even though you will see it on the ballot. Lawmakers asked the state Supreme Court to review the decision of a lower court voiding the amendment on grounds that it didn't get the proper public notice ahead of time. The Supreme Court agreed with the lower court and reaffirmed its decision. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. An Arizona state official is calling a fire at a mailbox a deliberate act of vandalism that undermines the democratic process. Zoreen Shaw has details.
It's believed only 5 ballots were destroyed, but the Secretary of State's office thinks it could have been up to 20. The Secretary of State says it was a deliberate act of vandalism, and police are conducting a criminal investigation with postal inspectors.
The Arizona Secretary of State says county drop boxes across the state have fire suppression equipment, unlike USPS mailboxes. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day, 140 points right now, while the NASDAQ is up by 138 points. In our KSL weather, we'll see sunshine today, but much, much cooler temperatures. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
We all want to be healthy, and the goal, Tim, I think, is less medicine. Not more medicine.
Oh, for sure.
So when it comes to losing weight, if you have to add to the injections and pills that you're already taking in order to do, that's not the goal. The goal is to get so healthy that you don't need the medicine, like what Vicky experienced.
I went from a 16, 18 down to a size 4 now. So that is amazing. It makes you feel so good. I mean, I literally was on over 40 to 50 pills a day, heart medicine, everything. I'm off of everything.
And I'm down 2 to 3 medications, just one of the unexpected benefits.
Yeah, how many times we talked about that it's so much more than just the numbers on the scale. It's going to change your life. And by the way, speaking of pills, there's no pills, no injections. You're still going to lose the weight you want. You're going to lose it quickly because they make a difference in how you look at food. Find out by going to SOTAweightLoss.com. It is spelled SOTA, and it stands for State of the
Art.
Addiction is a family illness, and at Renaissance Ranch, long-term sobriety is a reality. We help family relationships so you don't have to recover alone.
We're the professional staff at Renaissance Ranch.
We don't see addicts as bad men trying to be good.
Rather sick men that need to get well.
This is our message to them, that it doesn't matter how lost,
beaten down, or defeated you may feel.
Our greatest desire for you
is to see what we see.
That you are capable of healing.
Prepare to emerge to be the husband, the father, and the son that you were destined to be. So to our new brother,
we say, welcome home.
Addiction is a family illness, and at Renaissance Ranch, long-term sobriety is a reality. We help family relationships so you don't have to recover alone. New hope, new life at Renaissance Ranch.
It's official. KSL Sports is your official radio home of the Utah Hockey Club. When the puck hits the ice this fall, you'll hear every goal, every check, and every tension-filled moment on the KSL Sports Zone. Plus, let your voice be heard on the Utah Hockey Club Fan Forum on KSLSports.com. Your exclusive home of the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club in Utah is KSL Sports and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
It's crash-free and delay-free on your Salt Lake County freeways and your main secondaries. We do have the lane restriction now lifted. Traffic moving very well once again southbound Legacy Parkway through Farmington and Centerville. Teens can get up to $200 with a Teen Learn and Earn account. Plus, continue earning rewards as they master the essentials of finance. More at cypresscu.com/teen. Ricky Neese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, we may or may not get to 58 for a high today. It's 54 right now. Temperatures, though, rise back into the 70s before they drop again on Monday, and there's no chance of rain until then. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the big differences, I think, between reading a story online and hearing it from us, Tim, is that, you and I are allowed to share a reaction. We need to be able to say, what in the world were they thinking? So that people listening will know. We feel it too. When we read a story that sounds ridiculous, we're right with you. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, we get caught up, I'm sure just like our listeners do sometimes, in death scrolling on social media. And fact-checking it on your own is tough. The great thing about tuning in every morning and starting your morning with us on KSL is you can count on the fact that when that information comes out of the radio in your direction, it comes from reliable sources.
It's already been fact-checked.
Right. And that's not always easy when you're getting it online. Finding who wrote it, when was it written, has it been updated with the current facts of the day that change sometimes minute to minute, not just day to day.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
911, what's your emergency?
Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son.
On September 12, 1995, McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas.
There was no sign of forced entry. It was just as if McKay had walked out of his own free will.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, feels that justice was never truly served. Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Managing today's uncertainty can be overwhelming. We crave security, and it's uncomfortable when we sense a lack of control over our lives. Develop a routine for a more balanced lifestyle with healthy habits and fun. Focus on what you can control, even if it's little things, like a before-bedtime ritual.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Today in Salt Lake City, 47G Conference has been in full swing at locations around the Gateway. This conference brings together leaders in national defense, aerospace, cyber technology. In order to be prepared for the future, our country needs to be focused on the future and the advantages and challenges facing the United States if we want to remain the world's leader in security and defense. So what's going on over there? What should we know? How will this impact us moving forward? That's what we're going to talk about in this segment. We're really thrilled to have joining us on the program Matthew Pottinger, Distinguished Visiting Fellow at Hoover Institution, Chairman of the China Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and a former U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor, also CEO of Garno Industries. And Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be with you. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I know it is a race and chase kind of day with the 47G conference happening over there. Give us a sense as these organizations have convened, as they talk about companies here in Utah that are developing next generation aerospace and defense and cyber technologies. Give us a sense of the conversations today.
Absolutely. So what we're looking at here is you've got people who are building a private equity and investment community that is turning Salt Lake City and the broader greater Salt Lake City area into a new node for national defense investment and technologies. And this isn't just traditional sort of defense applications. It's like you said in the intro, it's cyber, it's biotechnology, it's information technologies that are designed to help protect the intellectual property of American companies by finding cyber or insider threats to those. So there's a lot. It's a pretty interesting conference. You've just got people who are investors and technologists and people who used to work in government and national security or currently work in government and analyzing geopolitics and the rest. So it's a pretty sporty conference.
Yeah, and there's always there's two things I want to hit quick with you. One is your message to them in terms of AI and chips and that component to it. And then I also want to talk just real quickly about we always call it the bumpability factor, those hallway conversations that take place at conferences and summits like 47G. So first, give us a little sense of what was your message to the groups today.
Yeah, so I was talking earlier today on a panel about the fact that the United States and our allies are now confronting an axis. That word is not hyperbole. Remember the Axis powers of the middle of the last century. It was Nazi Germany. It was Imperial Japan that was running rampant across the Pacific. It was Mussolini's Italy waging war in Africa and in Europe. And what we're looking at now is a highly technologically enabled axis with Beijing at the core, and it is providing the high-tech material and solutions that people, aggressive dictators like Vladimir Putin or the Ayatollah's regime in Iran or the North Korean dictatorship and its leader, these countries are now working more and more closely together to wage war. The largest war in Europe since 1945 is underway right now, courtesy of Vladimir Putin. Israel and the United States and some of our other allies are facing attacks all over the Middle East. And this is by design. It's not haphazard. These things are actually increasingly interlinked. So I was talking a bit about how we need to ensure that we show better resolve, but also that we stay ahead technologically to ensure that we have the capabilities to deter. We don't want to fight wars. It's a lot cheaper to deter a war by convincing your adversaries that you have the capabilities and resolve to inflict serious costs on them if they decide they want to invade their neighbor.
Yeah.
And so the message was really about the importance of deterrence, the affordability of deterrence. It's a lot cheaper than having to fight wars. And the fact that technology is at the core of this competition.
Yeah, those deterrents are so important, and as you said, Matthew, it is both a willpower issue, a resolve, as well as that capability, the capacity to actually carry it out in terms of that technology. Just in our last minute here, just give us a quick bumpability moment there in terms of just what you're hearing, the chatter in the hallway conversations. I always find those to be some of the most interesting parts of the day.
Well, look, as I was walking over to take your call, I bumped into Sue Gordon, who used to be the #2 official in the U.S. intelligence community that I worked with when I was a White House official, and we just caught up for a few minutes. I just bumped into a Utah entrepreneur who runs a new company called Dauntless Capital, and they're very interesting because this is a Utah company that is licensed to co-invest its private capital together with the Pentagon's Office of Strategic Capital to start funding new technologies, new private businesses in the United States that can help us maintain that edge technologically so we don't have to fight wars.
Yeah, great perspective, great insight. Matthew Pottinger, of course, CEO of Garneau Group, Distinguished Visiting Fellow at Hoover Institution, Chairman of the China Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, and a great event happening, 47G Summit, bringing all those defense industry leaders here to the state of Utah. It is part of bringing the world to Utah and Utah to the world in a very crucial space for the future. Matthew, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Boyd. See you soon.
Great perspective there, and this is another area where Utah's clearly punching above its weight once again, and really taking that Utah model to the world, bringing the best and brightest of the world here to the state of Utah. And when it comes to that premier ecosystem of aerospace, defense, and cyber, I don't know that anyone is doing it better or anyone's convening and promoting and advocating for companies in Utah like what's happening at 47G. And the summit today is just one more example of how that all happens. We'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
We're just 11 days away from the historic 2024 election.
I'm running for governor because you deserve partisanship, not unchecked power.
It's been an honor of a lifetime to serve as your governor. We've accomplished so much together.
Do your homework and get your ballot in the mail. Election week is coming, and we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted it close to town, with a picture window overlooking a yard. And you found it. Now, when you sit down to dinner, you've got front row seats too. Your neighbor's daily pickleball game. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this. 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. You know, for some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, firefighters in Holiday say they were working on an active rescue situation at a home near 60th South and 2075 East. Second, the Utah Supreme Court has issued a final ruling on Amendment D, upholding a lower court ruling that said the issue is not valid and votes for it won't be counted. And third, Arizona state officials say a fire in a postal service mailbox was a deliberate act targeting ballots in the mail. 54 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Well, 13 days to go in the 2024 election cycle. Of course, we've been looking at a lot of the swing states and the swing voters within those swing states. And some interesting groups and dynamics that in a close race could spell the difference for either of the candidates for president. Michigan, of course, is one of those crucial swing states. And in this election, it's one of those interesting groups that neither former President Trump nor Vice President Kamala Harris in a very close race in Michigan is really connecting with. The Arab American population in Michigan, about 400,000, is not happy with either side of the equation or their options. And the question will be, what will they do? And, of course, in the Democratic primary, there was a large number, 100,000 uncommitted voters who voted uncommitted, I should say, as a protest to the Biden administration and their handling of what was happening in Gaza, now in Lebanon. So we wanted to get underneath the headlines of all of that just a little bit. We have Iris Sentner, a journalist and fellow at Politico, has a great piece in Politico today talking about Arab Americans in Michigan and the role that they might play. And Iris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So give us, for our listeners, give us a little bit of the breakdown in terms of kind of the lay of the land, where things are in Michigan as it relates to the Arab American community.
Right. So as you said, Michigan is really a toss-up right now. Both candidates are polling at just about 50%. It's really on a knife's edge. And it really could come down to a handful of suburbs right outside of Detroit that have very large Arab American populations. And these voters are really angry right now because of what's happening in the Middle East. They see the Biden administration as complicit in the bombardment that's happening of Gaza and now of southern Lebanon. And they find it really difficult to vote for Kamala Harris, who they see as, failing to have differentiated herself from Biden's policies, even though these voters do tend to vote Democrat.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing to me. We always talk about no vote is a throwaway vote. Every vote is a message. And what message do you want to send with that vote? And it was pretty stunning in the Democratic primary that 100,000 votes were cast. So it wasn't; these were not just people who were staying home. These are people casting votes. 100,000 doing it as uncommitted as part of this movement to send a message to then nominee Joe Biden. And, of course, now they're, I think, hoping that there would have been some sort of response or, as you alluded to, some differentiation between the Harris and the Biden approach to what's happening in the Middle East.
Harris, some voters see her as being a little bit tougher on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and also considering more the concerns that these Arab American voters have about the suffering in Gaza. But really, she hasn't come out and with enough force to really sway a lot of these people's votes. So when you're looking at something like the Uncommitted Movement, which had about 100,000 people who vote in the Democratic primary and not support Biden, you're seeing them carry on this behavior as we approach Election Day.
Yeah, and give us your sense in terms of the breakdown and kind of the response within that community in terms of what the Harris campaign has done or hasn't done since she became the nominee.
So the Harris campaign has done a few things. The campaign met with some Arab American and Muslim American community leaders in Flint, Michigan. She's tweeted a few things talking about her commitment to ending the suffering in Gaza, as well as ending the broader war and getting the hostages home. But really, the Arab American voters are saying that's not enough. Millions and millions of people throughout the world and in this country consider what's happening in Gaza to be a genocide, and they view Harris as the second in command to the Biden administration as being complicit in that.
Yeah, and so as you look at the go forward, as you mentioned, this is a group that typically votes with the Democrats, and so in a close election, as you alluded to earlier, this could be a real difference maker. The question for me is less about will they cross over and vote for the former president, or will they stay home in the general election? Either way, those could be pretty big impact points.
What we're seeing is a lot of voters are just going to stay home. We know from 2016 that people are tired of two candidates that they don't like, and they're not going to vote for either candidate. I should also say that Donald Trump is a close ally of Netanyahu and is seen as being potentially even worse for the devastation in the Middle East than Harris or Biden. So a lot of those voters are just going to stay home and say, I'm not going to cast a vote for either candidate because they can't really stomach it. I think other voters are going to vote third party, which, again, because these are typically Democratic voters, would help Trump and hurt Harris. We're not going to know until Election Day, but it's certainly going to be interesting.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Great piece. You can check out Irie's piece at Politico.com today. And Irie Sentner, a journalist and fellow at Politico. Irie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, again, that's Irie Sentner, journalist, fellow at Politico. Check out his piece at Politico.com. And this one gets really interesting to me because if that group chooses to just stay home, that's an interesting component and dynamic, or if they vote third party. But again, those are all trade-offs. And we've talked about this before. You can go down any single one because no candidate is going to be perfectly aligned with you unless you're casting your vote for yourself. And so you can go down the path and say, okay, I can see the trade-offs because every vote is a trade-off and a measurement of priorities, which things are the most important to you. And so you can see and you can follow through someone who's going to vote for the Harris-Walz ticket and say, okay, I at least see how they got there. I may not agree, but I see how they got there. And you can see someone who's voting for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and you can say, okay, there's a series of trade-offs, there's a series of priorities, and I can see how they got there. I may not agree with it, but I see how they got there. And then we also have to have that same kind of understanding, that same kind of focus when it comes to those people who are, with their vote, expressing something by writing in a candidate or by voting for a third party. And we should never say that's a throwaway vote. We should never say, oh, you're just giving victory to the other side, because that's not what it is. We always look at it as, you want to be on the winning side. You want to be on the winning team when you cast your vote, because somehow, magically, that's going to give you more power or influence. No, it's an expression. And I think one of the interesting things that we saw play out in Michigan during the Democratic primary was President Joe Biden, former nominee Joe Biden, didn't really have much that he was running against, and yet 100,000 people showed up to the polls to vote uncommitted. Now, if I were a strategist in the Harris campaign, I would say they just sent a message, which means I should respond to that message somehow. Now, it doesn't mean I have to agree with them or buy into everything that they're asking for, but you better have a different kind of conversation. Because if they just feel like you're ignoring or neglecting, or that you just don't care, you're indifferent, then you've lost something. And in a close election, that can make the difference. And so that's the important thing for us to recognize as voters. If we send messages, if we express ourselves in how we vote, not just for president, but for all offices, from president to governor to representatives, city council, school board, we're expressing something that matters to us. We're expressing our values and what we think the priorities ought to be for that particular role. And if we do that, the politicians will follow. I'm telling you, they'll follow. The smart ones will anyway, and they'll be the ones that will be in office. But if we always make it a binary choice and either have to win with Team Red or win with Team Blue, we're just going to have the same status quo, and we're never going to get to the real conversations in terms of what matters most, and more importantly, how do we get to next as a nation?
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis, and we have breaking news at this hour. 2 residents of a home in Holiday, along with 2 firefighters and 2 police officers, were injured this afternoon. Fire was in a home near 60th South and 2075 East. Benjamin Porter with Unified Fire says this was a full alarm fire.
They saw smoke on the horizon. Before they even arrived, they upgraded it to a working incident and got additional resources coming. That allowed them to act very promptly when they got here to go straight in on a rescue operation.
And we're just now learning details of the rescue operation. We'll have more at 3 o'clock on KSL News Radio. The duck hunter who drowned in the Great Salt Lake has been identified. The Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office says Kenneth Hill and another man were in the water retrieving their decoys when his companion spotted him face down in the water. The other man managed to bring his friend to a nearby island, but first responders determined he had died. Kenneth Hill was 81. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. U.S. forces participated in a military action against ISIS forces in Iraq today. The Pentagon says the new leader of ISIS was killed. The operation in Iraq's Anbar province reported to still be ongoing. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today, down 140 points, while the NASDAQ was up 138 points. The S&P 500 was up by 12. And our KSL weather, a lot cooler than yesterday, but just as sunny. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hey BYU football fans, this is Mitch Harper. The Cougars are back in action this week as they travel cross-country to take on UCF. And to get ready for the Sunshine State Showdown against the Knights, visit your local Macy's grocery store for all of your game day needs. They've got great prices on all of your favorite game day items like burger patties, made fresh dips, and more. They've also got tailgate foods that are offered through Macy's Catering, offering a wide variety of platters with smoked meats, wings, and even desserts. Catering is available to order online or in store. Getting in the Halloween mood? Macy's also has you covered with a variety of pumpkins and pumpkin-flavored treats in the bakery. Never miss a deal when you sign up for the Macy's Rewards program so you can get the weekly ads sent straight to your inbox each week.
Hi, this is BYU captain and defensive end Tyler Batty. It's football season again. Make sure to shop your local Macy's grocery stores for all your favorite tailgate foods.
Get game day ready with Macy's. Happy shopping.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
As we approach the end of October now, you need to start planning ahead for all of those great occasions. Now, we've got Halloween at the end of the month. We've got Thanksgiving, all of the holiday Christmas celebrations and New Year's. Make sure you've got that reservation all set, locked down, ready to go at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And if you're thinking of a company party, if you're looking for a great gift, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse can take care of it. They've got special rooms for that company gathering, but you do need to make your reservation right now. And a gift card to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Who wouldn't love that? 2 locations, Hotel Park City, and of course in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City at 275 Southwest Temple. They have got it all. The steaks cooked to perfection, seafood and poultry, those side dishes and desserts. Make sure this holiday season you are set and ready to go at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Hotel Park City, downtown Salt Lake City.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business.
Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Slowdowns northbound on Mountain View Corridor trying to get to the intersection at 114th South. A lot of that is due to lane restrictions with road work. And we also have an accident called out on Redwood Road. It's going to be near North Temple, where we already have the center lanes blocked to traffic. Attention, commercial property managers and business owners. This winter, don't let snow turn your parking lot into a haunted house. Let GoPave Utah clear the scares away. GoPaveUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We might get to 58 today, but temperatures rise back into the 70s this week before they drop again on Monday, and there's no chance of rain until then. Right now, we're looking at 55 degrees under sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the national headlines continue to point out a growing challenge facing higher education in America. Nationwide, college enrollment is down. Confidence in the system is lower than it has been in the past. But is there something underneath the headline, and is it time for the nation to think again about what we think we know in higher education, and could the Utah model contain the answer? Astrid Tuminez is the president of Utah Valley University, and President Tuminez, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Boyd. Good to hear your voice.
It is great to have you on, and let's start with some of that secret sauce. Why is it that Utah Valley University in particular is continuing to keep enrollment at all-time highs and that important confidence factor where it needs to be?
Yes, so this fall semester, Utah Valley University's enrollment, the university that I run here in Utah, is 46,809 students, and that enrollment has grown 17% from the time I started in 2018. Other universities in the state are also growing, and I think that's an indication, first of all, of the general respect and value that people put in higher education in this state. We have a very dynamic economy, and the government of Utah is very deliberate about identifying 4- and 5-star jobs that the state's economy needs, and our higher education institutions are producing those graduates for the workforce of the state. I think also the fact that we have a range of options in the state, from community colleges, technical colleges, regional universities, and then research institutions. I think that's also a big draw for students.
Yeah, no question about that. And I want to get to some of the things that you're doing there at Utah Valley University. It is an extraordinary story. And you're really creating this place where a lot of students, non-traditional, traditional, are really finding a place to thrive and to function from a position of confidence. What is it that is happening on campus that is creating a culture of confidence?
I think it's the color green, but seriously speaking, when I came 6 years ago, we launched this campaign, A Place for You. And I think that's proven to be very powerful at a time when people really need to feel the sense of belonging. What we do here is something that I call non-prejudicial education. And the majority of our students are not 18-year-old, first-time, 4-year degree-seeking students. It's a mix of everything and everyone, from your 40-year-old freshmen, from students who were successful in high school and those who were less successful, mothers who have finished raising children and are ready to begin a new phase of life and need more education. So I think the support that we offer to students is also really important. So we accept everyone, but you can't bring them in and then let them drown in a university. You have to support them. So we offer what I call surround sound support, from academic advising, tutoring, to a food pantry for those who are experiencing food insecurity, mental health counseling, and a lot of happy things in athletics and the arts. So I think it's really building a very strong community and having offerings that are relevant to what is needed in the workplace today.
No question about that. And I thought you were going to say that the real secret was the strand of green in your hair that has been the...
Yeah, that's proven pretty popular, too. I also want to say, because you hear this a lot, we do offer what is called engaged learning. What that essentially means is come to UVU, come get your hands dirty, come learn to work with others, come work in a team, come learn to communicate and coordinate, and even come learn to fail. And then try again, iterate what you're trying to do. That's the approach that we're taking.
Oh, I love that. And I think of all the things that students can walk away from a university experience with, I think those are the things. It's not just that straight shot path. It's about the failures and the ups and downs and learning to work with diversity and seeing the dignity across our differences. Give us some sense. A lot of people, particularly with the younger crowd, are often, maligning them, dismissing them as being narcissistic and self-absorbed and a selfie generation. We've been talking today about the fact that they actually get it maybe better than the adults, and they could be the pendulum swing that the nation needs to kind of change the conversation.
Yes, I actually find a lot of idealism in our students, and I'm the kind of university president that spends a lot of time on the ground with students. This semester, I launched something I'm calling Presidential 100. I am mentoring 100 freshmen and sophomores in a 7-session class that is non-credit. And there's over 100 of them in this class. And again, I will emphasize that they are idealistic. They need guidance. They sometimes feel overwhelmed by what is happening in politics, economics, climate change. They want to know that there is a future that they can build. And so a lot of the students are needing role models, and they need opportunities to do things, not just to learn things in a classroom setting. So whether you're talking about teachers, nurses, cybersecurity specialists, applied AI, we are giving them as much as we can opportunities to really do the work. For example, on Monday, we're going to have a newsmaker event here. Our students have done research on whether people can identify the real thing versus deep fakes in an election season. And this study has been so interesting because it's combined our National Security Studies Center, our biometrics lab in the business school, and then our Herbert Institute for Public Policy. So these are the types of activities that really get our students engaged. They feel empowered that they can learn, make decisions, and do something in this world.
That's so powerful, and nothing more important. I wish we could get every university president to grab 100 students and go through that process. That's extraordinary, and I'm going to flip that one on you a little bit, President Jimenez, and ask, of those 100 students, as you had a chance to interact and teach and share with them, what have you learned from them? I know you're a big forever learner, if ever there was one. What have you learned from these 100 plus students in that setting?
First, I have learned that they have a lot of questions. So one of the things I was worried about was, this could be one way, but I found that both with me and the guests that I bring to this class, the students always have a ton of interesting questions. They want to learn more, and they want to know what the implications are of what they're hearing. So the last session, for example, we discussed what I call the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: our broken politics, climate change, the epidemic of loneliness. And what was our fourth horseman? We had one more horseman. But instead, I didn't want that session to be dark and depressing. And it was so interesting to listen to the questions at the end of it. I had four experts there discussing these dire things we are facing. All the questions were about what can we do? Who do we turn to? What institutions can we trust? And so I actually feel more hopeful. I felt more hopeful there at the end than at the beginning.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I want to get to that question of mental health. It is one that we have seen a lot on college campuses, that epidemic of loneliness and some of those things in terms of self-esteem and self-worth. I know in your surround sound approach and just encircling these students, what else have you noticed there, and what else do we need to be maybe thinking differently about when it comes to mental health of students on campus?
I think for mental health, one of the most essential things is community. Our first core value at UVU is exceptional care, and I talk about that almost every single day. The reason for that is you cannot simply rely on the counselors or the mental health therapist to take care of mental health. The person at the cafeteria must be thinking about it. The professor in front of the class must be thinking about it. I must be thinking about it. So when we build this community where we genuinely care for one another and we see each other for all of our differences and even the things that we vehemently disagree upon, I think that is the beginning of a more solid mental health. And then the support system is important, beginning with, the Student Life and Wellness Center where you can climb the wall there. Our food pantry offers healthy food options. And also, I'm actually, for my Presidential 100, we are doing a session on the spiritual foundations of mental health, because I feel very strongly that just like the physical body needs muscle, our spiritual health needs muscle and exercise so that we end up being more resilient and being more mentally whole.
And as you look ahead, and you are one that sees far ahead and around corners, and you've done such an extraordinary work there at Utah Valley University, give us one thing that maybe we all ought to think a little differently about what we think we know when it comes to higher education and what that future ought to look like in America.
I think the most important thing we need to learn in higher education is that every individual has potential. We've set up a system that weeds out rather than brings in individuals. And so when I look at 46,809 students, I know that I cannot live their life for them. I cannot make their choices for them. But however, as a university president, I and my colleagues, the professors and staff, can offer to them tools that will help them navigate, because each of them is a story waiting to unfold. It's a human potential waiting to happen. Nobody ever sets out to say, I want to be a failure. I want to be on welfare. I want to be drug addicted. Most people have dreams. And so I feel that if we can change our mindset about who higher education is for, we could actually go a long way in spreading the benefits of this wonderful tool.
I love that. Rather than weeding out, bringing in, not looking at students as just part of an assembly line, not a liability to be managed until they're done, but a human being with infinite, even divine potential, I think is a very different way to lead. President Astrid Jimenez, president of Utah Valley University. For everyone listening, this is what leadership sounds like. This is what leadership acts like. And President Jimenez, thanks so much for making time for us and for the great work you're doing at Utah Valley University.
Thank you. Thank you, Boyd.
Nobody better. Astrid Jimenez from Utah Valley University. We'll step aside for one last break. Some final thoughts on Inside Sources coming up next here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
We're just 11 days away from the historic 2024 election.
I'm running for governor because you deserve partisanship, not unchecked power.
It's been an honor of a lifetime to serve as your governor. We've accomplished so much together.
Do your homework and get your ballot in the mail. Election week is coming, and we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Join KSL in the Movie Show this Friday from 10 to 1 at the Salt Lake NPS Store, 1600 Empire Road in Salt Lake City, npsstore.com.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with half-price granite. For a limited time, Half-Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half-Price Granite, affordable luxury.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. Did you know that we offer 3 distinct styles of gutter protection? Each one meant to handle a specific leaf problem. You might not even know there are different styles of gutter protection, but there are. And if you pick the wrong one, it could be a huge waste of money. Now, the big gutter guard companies won't tell you this. They try to sell you a one-size-fits-all gutter guard. And it could be completely wrong for the amount and types of trees and leaves you have. Not RGS Exteriors. We understand which kind of leaf problem needs which kind of gutter guard. We'll do an in-depth evaluation to assess the types, locations, and numbers of trees in your yard. Based on that data, we match your home to the right gutter guard. So don't risk wasting money on the wrong gutter protection. For a free evaluation and estimate, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsexteriors.com.
Want to avoid getting sick this fall? Getting your immunizations is a classic approach. You can protect yourself against the flu, RSV, pneumonia, and COVID. Does that sound like music to your ears? Then talk to a doctor or healthcare provider. And visit uptodate.utah.gov to learn more.
Fall is here, and there's nothing better than to sit in a relaxing hot tub when it's cold outside. Hot Tub Factory Outlet and Backyards of America can help you save on your next hot tub. Save a staggering 30, 40, even 50% off MSRP on Sundance hot tubs and swim spas. Yes, you heard right. 30, 40, even 50% off. With every size and color available, your choices are limitless. And here's the icing on the cake. Be one of the first 20 buyers and receive a free $2,700 electric massage chair. Absolutely free. But hurry, these chairs are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone. Every Sundance hot tub and swim spa is priced to sell. Visit the largest swim spa showroom in the state and find out how easy it is to say yes to your very own hot tub or swim spa. Time is running out. Head over to Hot Tub Factory Outlet next to Cowabunga Bay and Draper, Backyards of America in Sandy, and our new location, Station Park in Farmington.
Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
911, what's your emergency? Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son, and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
Former high-ranking police official, he'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, 2 firefighters and 2 police officers were injured in a house fire, along with 2 residents of a home near 60th South and 2075 East. Second, the name of the duck hunter who drowned in the Great Salt Lake Monday night has been released. Kenneth Hill was 81. And third, American forces have been involved in an action against ISIS today in the Anbar province of Iraq. 55 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, I want to reference back to a couple of the things that we started the program with, because I think it's so vital that we get to these think again kind of conversations. because so often we miss things because of headlines. We miss things because of anger, fear, and frustration. We miss things because of what we get served up in our social media feed. We started the show today with Veronique DeRougy, who's a contributing editor at Reason, and she had this very compelling piece about the fact that neither former President Trump nor Vice President Harris actually want to drain the swamp. They both talk about it a lot on the campaign trail. You hear a lot of applause lines when they're up in front of big crowds about we're going to drain the swamp. But neither of them really want to drain the swamp. They actually just want you to join it. And that was Veronique's take on all of this, and it is so true. Because what we've done is we've actually drained the meaning out of the phrase drain the swamp. We've heard it for years and years and years. It became such a great line for political consultants to convince candidates to use. And you can do merchandise around it, and you can do fundraising letters off of it, and you can do it as an applause lines at a big event. Nothing sells better than the line, drain the swamp. But we've totally drained the meaning out of drain the swamp. And neither of them are really interested in doing anything with it. Because what they really want you to do is to say, it's just okay. So we talk about draining the swamp, and we talk about the lawyers and the lobbyists and those of high influence and what they're getting out of Washington, D.C. But what our politicians and elected officials are doing is saying, come on in, the water's fine. Because they keep buying into it. And they keep rewarding the bad behavior. One of the examples we went to is Solyndra. Now, Solyndra is a very cautionary tale about how politicians can waste your money and my money to help their friends and the political elite, the wealthy and the well-connected. So the most interesting thing to me about the Solyndra case was the fact that the company was already going to do all the things that the government and your tax dollars bought into before they knew they were going to get money from the government. In other words, they were going to go do it the right way. They were going to go raise money. They were going to get investors. They were going to get banks to get behind them and lend them money. But then when a friend of a friend of a friend and a political donor says, hey, this is a great thing, this would be a good project. And suddenly there's all kinds of money dripping from the federal government. And so then rather than do the things that they were intending to do, they just kind of kick back because now they've got the cash. And, of course, it ended up failing miserably because cash flow covers a multitude of problems in an organization. And when it's government money, there's a multiplier effect on it. And so we continue to see that play out. Many of the things that we saw that former President Trump and that Vice President Harris and even President Biden have talked about in terms of some of the things that they have been pushing, the CHIPS and Science Act, some of the things that came out during the course of the pandemic, Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of the money, this is important, a lot of the money that was doled out went to projects that were announced by companies and organizations before the Inflation Reduction Act was even on the table. So, in other words, the free market was going to do these things of its own free will. But then when there's free government money floating around, well, of course you would take that. And of course they did. And that's what's wrong with the swamp. And the most devastating impact of that was something else we talked about today, and that's the impact on small businesses. Remember, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Over half of the GDP in this nation comes from small businesses. Over half the jobs that Americans have today are in small businesses. But this is how it works, and this is why it's wrong. Because when you have the wealthy and the well-connected in the lobbying class getting those big contracts and those big dollars from the government, it actually stifles innovation and it kills competition. And those big companies who can afford an army of lobbyists, of course, are going to get that money because the new company, the startup company, the entrepreneur, the small business owner can't compete with that. There's no way. And so they get boxed out and beaten down. And so it actually, even on things like solar panels, for example, many people have said, look, we have slowed down the innovation and we've also propped up the price because of what happens in the swamp, where if they actually had to compete, they'd cut prices, they'd increase quality, and they would drive innovation, which is actually what we want. And so sadly, as we've drained the meaning out of the term drain the swamp, both sides, equal opportunity offense going on here today. The Democrats and the Republicans alike have been all too happy to not say, well, we don't really want to drain the swamp. We actually think the water's nice. Come in and join us. And that's the problem, and it hurts small businesses and our communities the most. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us today. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.